Imagine being caught in a moment where a single decision could change everything. For David, a small-town restaurant manager, that moment came when he asked a woman to leave over something as simple as a MAGA hat. But what happened next? A wave of outrage, an unexpected apology, and a shocking twist that no one could have predicted. In a world where every action seems to have a consequence, David's journey is about to reveal just how far one choice can go, and the price of standing by your beliefs. Stay tuned. This story is about to take an unexpected turn. It was a typical evening at the Gilded Spoon, a 5-star restaurant known for its impeccable service and fine cuisine. But tonight, the air would shift in ways no one could predict. Inside the elegant dining room, something was about to happen that would put everyone on edge. At a table in the heart of the restaurant, one guest, seemingly unaware of the growing tension, sat alone. Her red cap, emblazoned with the slogan, "Make America Great Again," caught the attention of every diner within a few feet. And though the woman appeared unbothered, the same couldn't be said for those around her. Woman, told, "Do you see that? I can't believe she's wearing that here." Man, told, "This place is supposed to be classy. She can't wear that in here." What began as a quiet, seemingly innocent meal was beginning to stir up discomfort among the patrons. In a place like this, where politics and opinions were often left at the door, a single red hat had managed to send shockwaves through the room. David had been managing the Gilded Spoon for over a decade. He knew the importance of creating a peaceful, neutral environment for his guests. He also knew that a small disturbance, whether big or small, could easily disrupt the flow of the evening. And right now, he could feel the tension simmering just beneath the surface. David wasn't the type to shy away from difficult situations. He had handled everything from unruly customers to complicated reservations with grace. But tonight, he would face a dilemma that would test his resolve. David told, "Excuse me, ma'am. I'm going to have to ask you to remove your hat. It's causing a disturbance." Woman told, "Disturbance? What do you mean? I'm just sitting here, eating my meal." David told, "I understand, but this is a fine dining establishment, and we have a policy that doesn't allow political symbols or attire. The hat is making some guests uncomfortable. I'm going to have to ask you to take it off." What David didn't expect was the fiery reaction he would get in return. What he thought would be a simple request was quickly turning into something much larger, something he couldn't have predicted. Woman told, "You're kidding, right? This is America. I can wear whatever I want. You can't just ask me to remove it. I'm not doing anything wrong." David's calm demeanor remained, but inside, he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The policy was clear. No political statements, no divisive attire. But was it worth risking a confrontation over a single red hat? The woman's anger was palpable, and the tension in the restaurant was about to reach its breaking point. David told, "I'm asking you once more, ma'am. Please remove the hat, or I will have to ask you to leave." Woman told, "You can't be serious. This is outrageous. Do you know who I am? You'll regret this." Patron told, "Can you believe that? She didn't even get a chance to eat." Unbelievable. He had no right to kick her out like that. As the woman storms out of the restaurant, the room is left in stunned silence. Some guests were on her side, others sided with David, but no one could deny the scene that had just unfolded. The calm, controlled environment of the Gilded Spoon had been shaken to its core by a single red hat. David had done what he thought was right, enforcing the rules of the restaurant. But was it the right decision? Could he have handled the situation differently? And, most importantly, would the fallout be worth it? But this wasn't just about a hat. It was about far more than that. David had made a choice, and now the consequences of that choice would ripple through the evening in ways he could never have imagined. As the door swung shut behind her, the calm atmosphere of the restaurant seemed to dissipate, leaving behind a charged silence. David stood at the threshold, watching the woman leave, his thoughts racing. He had made a decision, one he believed was justified. But now, the weight of it began to settle over him like a heavy cloud. The incident was over, but its effects had just begun to ripple through the room. Some guests were already murmuring under their breath, unsure of what to make of the confrontation they had just witnessed. Others seemed quietly relieved that the conflict had been resolved. But for every diner who agreed with David's decision, there were others who felt unsettled, who felt that something was wrong, something had been lost. Woman, told, was that really necessary? She wasn't doing anything but sitting there. Partner, told, I get the policy, but kicking her out over a hat seems extreme. Man, told, she had every right to wear that hat. This is America. That manager has no business telling her what to do. Wife, told, I don't know. He did ask her nicely at first, but it just escalated so fast. The tension in the room was no longer just about the hat. It was about principles. It was about rights. It was about the moment when a small decision spun out of control. And it wasn't just the guests who were feeling it. The pressure was mounting on David, too. David had always been the type to manage with authority, his calm demeanor able to quell any situation before it got out of hand. But tonight, he could feel the whispers, the questioning eyes of his staff, his customers, and maybe even himself. Was he right to do what he did? Had he been too quick to judge? David, told, hello? Sarah, told, David, I've been getting a lot of questions from the staff. People are talking. The woman's family is pretty well known in the community. You're going to have some pushback. The guests are already talking about it. David, told, I know. I've heard it. I'm just trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't want this to turn into a spectacle, Sarah. It was a simple policy. A few words, and it escalated. Sarah, told, maybe it was more than just the policy, David. People are going to see this as a statement, and you're going to need to handle it carefully. The weight of Sarah's words lingered in the air long after the phone call ended. This wasn't just about enforcing rules anymore. It was about perception, about the way the restaurant's decision would be interpreted by a public hungry for a reason to take sides. What David didn't know, and what no one could have predicted, was that this would be the first ripple in a wave of controversy that would soon engulf the restaurant. The phone calls, the messages, the social media posts, it would all begin with the woman's angry exit. But what had started as a single moment of defiance would soon grow into something far larger. The world outside was already moving, and soon it would take notice of what had happened here. The question was no longer about whether David was right. The question was, how far would this go? But the woman wasn't done. She was fuming, furious at how she had been treated. And in the age of social media, a single message could reach thousands, maybe millions. As her fingers moved over the keys, she began to share her side of the story. It was a message that would set the stage for an explosive reaction. In that single moment, a small act of defiance had become a rallying cry for those who felt their voices were being silenced. And with it, David's decision would no longer be a simple matter of policy. It would be a battleground for something much larger. What had started as a private disagreement between a manager and a customer was now in the public eye. And with each new comment, each new post, the stakes rose higher. Would the restaurant buckle under the pressure, or would David stand his ground? The storm was coming, and David had no idea how to stop it. David had always prided himself on his ability to stay in control. As the manager of the Gilded Spoon, he was known for handling even the most chaotic situations with ease. But tonight, everything felt different. The tension in the air wasn't just from the moment that had just passed, it was from the storm that was about to hit. As the whispers continued, David knew he had to take action. This wasn't just a small disagreement. It had grown into something bigger. The woman's post was now live, and with it, she had set in motion a wave of reactions. Her anger was now public, a message for the world to see. It didn't matter whether she was right or wrong. The moment she hit send, she became a symbol for those who felt that their voices, their opinions, were being silenced in society. David couldn't let the incident linger. The longer it went unaddressed, the harder it would be to salvage the evening. The restaurant's reputation, and perhaps his own career, hung in the balance. He had no choice but to make the hardest call of his career. David told Sarah, "I need you to keep an eye on things out front. If she comes back in, I'm going to have to ask her to leave for good. This situation can't escalate any further." Sarah told, "Understood, David. I'll be watching." David was doing his best to keep his composure, but it was clear that his mind was already spiraling. This wasn't just about enforcing a policy anymore. It was about managing the fallout. How would the other customers react? How would the media? And then, just as David had feared, she returned. The door swung open, and the woman marched back into the restaurant with purpose. The bell above the door rang loudly, and suddenly the entire room seemed to fall into silence. All eyes turned toward her. David told, "Ma'am, I need to speak with you for a moment." Woman told, "Don't even start with me again. You can't just kick people out like that. I'm not going anywhere. This is my right." David told, "I've asked you politely before, but you've refused. And now I'm asking you to leave, once and for all. If you don't leave now, I will have to call security." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a decision that would have long-lasting consequences. This wasn't just about a hat. It wasn't just about the restaurant's policies. This was about a clash of ideals, and the point of no return was quickly approaching. Woman told, "You think you can just tell people what to wear? This is America. I have the right to wear whatever I want. You're going to regret this. I'll make sure of it." David told, "Ma'am, I'm not arguing with you, but I have a responsibility to make sure this restaurant remains a welcoming space for everyone. And right now, you're creating an environment where others are uncomfortable. I've asked you to leave. Please, don't make this harder than it has to be." Woman told, "You're going to kick me out over a hat? Over a simple piece of cloth? Fine, I'll leave, but I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. You'll never get away with this." And just like that, she was gone. The storm had passed, but its aftermath would linger. David stood in the center of the room, the weight of the moment settling heavily on his shoulders. The decision had been made, and there was no turning back. But even as the door swung closed behind the woman, David could feel the shifting tide of reactions around him. David had made a decision, one that he believed was for the best. But as the dust began to settle, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just crossed a line. The woman may have left, But the conversation was far from over. What would the patrons think? What would the media say? And, most importantly, had he done the right thing? In that moment, David realized something profound, that sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that carry the most weight. And no matter how right or justified he felt in his actions, the consequences of those actions would ripple outward, touching not just his career, but the lives of everyone involved. What David didn't know, what no one could know, was just how far the ripples of tonight's decision would spread. The woman may have been kicked out, but the real storm was only just beginning. David had just made one of the toughest decisions of his career. The woman with the MAGA hat was gone, but the storm she left behind was just beginning to swirl. The silence in the restaurant was deafening, and David could feel the weight of every eye still upon him. He wasn't just the manager of a restaurant anymore. He was a man at the center of a growing controversy, and he knew that the real consequences were yet to come. David told, "Hello?" Other side, "David, this is Rebecca Harris from the Beacon News. I'm calling about an incident at your restaurant tonight. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to." David told, I assume you've heard about the situation. Yes, a customer was asked to leave after violating our restaurant policy." Rebecca told, "Violating your policy, huh? Let's talk about that. I've seen the social media posts, David, and I've spoken to several people who were there. It's being painted as an aggressive expulsion, not just a request. Would you care to explain your side of the story?" Rebecca Harris from the Beacon News was known for her hard-hitting stories. She wasn't the type to shy away from controversy, especially when it involved a public figure or a potential scandal. This was no longer just about a simple disagreement between a manager and a customer. This was going to be bigger, much bigger, and David was the one holding the hot potato. David told, "I'm not sure where you're getting your information from, Rebecca, but I can assure you that the situation was handled professionally. The guest was asked to remove a political symbol in accordance with our restaurant policy. She refused, became belligerent, and was then asked to leave. There was no aggression on my part, and I believe I followed the protocol to the letter." Rebecca told, "Really? That's your story? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like your restaurant just kicked out a paying customer for wearing a hat. A hat that, by the way, has become a symbol of political polarization. You see where this is going, right?" David told, "I don't care about politics. This isn't about politics. It's about maintaining a neutral, respectful environment for all of our guests. No one should be made uncomfortable because of someone else's attire. That's the point I was trying to make." Rebecca told, Well, that's one way to spin it, David. But let's talk about the bigger picture here. I'm hearing a lot of upset diners, some of whom you may know have been longtime patrons, and I'm hearing about a growing backlash online. This isn't just a one-off incident. It's starting to look like your restaurant has taken a political stance, a very public, very controversial stance. The pressure in David's chest was mounting. His restaurant was under attack, not just by the woman with the hat, but by the very thing he'd tried to avoid, the media. What was meant to be a quiet policy enforcement had exploded into a spectacle, and now the entire world was watching, ready to pass judgment on his every move. Could he salvage this? Or had he just made a fatal error? David told, "Look, Rebecca, I understand that people might be upset, but that's not going to change the facts. The policy is clear. There's nothing more to discuss." Rebecca told, "Oh, but David, there's a lot more to discuss. The internet's already picked up on this. People are mobilizing. Boycotts are being organized. This could blow up in your face. Fast. You're going to be facing questions about your restaurant's stance on freedom of expression, on political views, and who knows what else. And if the public doesn't like your response, well, that could have serious consequences for your business. I suggest you prepare yourself. David told Rebecca, I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted to do what was right for my restaurant. I'm not interested in making political statements. Rebecca told, You might not have intended it, David, but you've made one now, and the real question is, how are you going to navigate the fallout? This is your chance to own the narrative. Your next steps will determine whether you weather this storm or get swept up in it. David sat there, staring at the phone in his hand, the weight of Rebecca's words hanging in the air. He hadn't just kicked out a customer. He had inadvertently sparked a firestorm, a storm that could tear his career apart and drag his restaurant's reputation through the mud. And now, the clock was ticking. The world was watching, and David had no idea what move to make next. This wasn't just about enforcing rules anymore. It was about survival. The real battle was about to begin, and David had no idea if he was prepared to face it. The hours after the incident had been a blur. The phone call with Rebecca had unsettled David more than he had let on. He knew the story was already spreading. By the time he had arrived at home last night, his inbox had been flooded with messages, some of them supportive, others harshly critical. His mind raced with every possibility, every comment he had read, every judgment that had been passed. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but he knew one thing for certain. The world was watching him now. Sarah told, Here, you look like you could use this. David told, I never thought it would go this far, Sarah. I honestly thought it would just blow over. I thought it was just one bad moment. Sarah told, You did what you thought was right. No one expected this to blow up the way it did. I've been following some of the news, and I know it's not easy. But you're not alone in this. We've all got your back. David told, Thanks. I don't know. I thought I could handle it. I thought it was clear what we were doing. But now, it feels like everything's been turned upside down. David's heart skips a beat. The last thing he expected this morning was for her to show up again. He had prepared himself for angry emails, phone calls, or even a viral social media post. But not this, not her, standing right there in the very place she had been turned away from less than 12 hours ago. David told, Can I help you? Woman told, I wanted to apologize for last night. David told, I'm not sure I understand. After everything that happened. Woman told, I know. I shouldn't have reacted like that. I came in here all ready to fight, but that's not who I want to be. I let my anger get the best of me. And when I left last night, I realized I'd made a mistake. I've been thinking about it all night. David's mind races. Could this be an attempt to regain some control over the narrative? Was she trying to soften the blow of her own actions in front of the public? Or was this genuine? A part of him was reluctant to trust her words, but the sincerity in her voice gave him pause. It was rare to see someone admit fault so openly, especially after the kind of uproar she had caused. David told, Apology accepted. I appreciate you coming in to say that. But I have to ask, why now? Why this sudden change? Woman told, I don't want to be the kind of person who just digs in my heels and refuses to acknowledge when I'm wrong. Last night, I let my pride and my anger dictate my actions. And after everything that happened, I realized I wasn't just angry at you, I was angry at the world. I was angry at how things are going, at how people can't even disagree without tearing each other apart. But that's no excuse, and I want to be better than that. David told, "Thank you. I think that takes a lot of courage, and I'm glad you came in." Woman told, "I know I'm not going to change everyone's mind, and I know there's still people who won't agree with what I did or how I reacted. But at least now I can move forward knowing that I didn't let my anger control me." David told, "We all have moments like that. I've made my share of mistakes too." As the woman left, the air seemed to clear. David wasn't sure what had just happened. Had this moment truly resolved anything, or was it merely a temporary truce in an ongoing battle? One thing was certain, though. Her apology had been a curveball, one that David hadn't expected. It was a rare glimpse into the complexity of human emotions, a reminder that people were more than the labels they wore or the symbols they displayed. The truth wasn't always clear-cut. But as the door closed behind the woman, David couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. An apology had been made, but there was more to the story, more layers to uncover. The world was still watching, and the consequences of last night's actions were only just beginning to unfold. David had hoped that the apology would be a turning point, a rare moment of grace in the midst of a firestorm, but there was something unsettling about it, something that he couldn't quite put his finger on. As the woman had walked out of the restaurant, he thought that maybe, just maybe, they could both move forward from this ordeal. But the uneasy feeling in his gut told him that this wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. Rebecca Harris. The very name sent a shiver down David's spine. She had been relentless, cold in her pursuit of the story, and every word she had spoken seemed to carry a hidden weight. What now? What more could she possibly want? David, into the phone. "Hello?" Rebecca, sharp, her voice carrying an edge of urgency. "David, it's Rebecca. I need to speak to you right now. Are you in the restaurant?" David said, "Yeah, I'm here. What's going on?" Rebecca said, "You're not going to believe this, but I just got something. Something big. It's about last night. About that woman with the hat." David told, "What do you mean? What's bigger than what already happened?" Rebecca rolled, "There's more to her than you think, David. I've been digging into her background. And what I found, well, it's going to make everything you've done look like a drop in the ocean." David told, "What are you talking about?" Rebecca told, "You'll want to sit down for this. I've discovered that the woman you kicked out of your restaurant last night, her name is Monica Summers, isn't just a random diner. She's connected to a very influential group. In fact, she's one of the primary spokespersons for an online campaign that's been calling for boycotts of businesses who enforce politically correct policies. Her organization has been targeting companies like yours, ones that appear to lean towards neutrality or inclusion. And here's the kicker, David. She's been using her victimization from last night to fuel a viral social media movement, painting herself as a martyr for free speech." David's world tilted. The events of last night, the heated confrontation, the apology. Had they all been part of some larger plan? Had Monica's outburst been staged? Had she come to the restaurant with a clear agenda in mind, waiting for the right moment to ignite the firestorm? David felt the ground shifting beneath him, the realization hitting him hard. This wasn't just about a policy violation anymore. It was a calculated attack, one that could destroy everything he had worked for. David told, "Wait." You're telling me she wanted this to happen? She set this all up? Rebecca said, "Not exactly. I don't think she knew you'd kick her out so publicly. But this whole thing has played right into her hands. She's been positioning herself as a free speech advocate, and now, after what happened at your restaurant, she's got a cause. She's rallying people to her side, David. She's using you, using your restaurant, to further her own agenda." David told, "So I'm a pawn in her game? My restaurant, my business, is being used as a platform for her political stunt? You're telling me this is all just a setup?" Rebecca said, "Exactly. And the worst part is, David, this isn't just some local issue anymore. This is national. She's already gotten the attention of major influencers, conservative media outlets are picking up the story, and now your restaurant is at the center of a political storm. If you don't take control of this narrative soon, it's going to spiral out of control, and fast." David told, "So, what do I do now, Rebecca?" "You're saying I've got to fix this? How do I even begin to fix this?" Rebecca told, "You need to own the story, David. You need to make a public statement, and not just any statement. Something that aligns with your values but also shows that you're not going to let Monica control the narrative. You've got to act fast. The media is going to come after you. The public is going to come after you. You have a chance to regain control of this, but you need to move quickly." David had been blindsided. What he thought was a simple, isolated incident had turned into something much more dangerous. He had unwittingly stepped into a battle far beyond the restaurant's walls, a political war that he had never signed up for. And now, the question was no longer about what had happened last night. It was about how David would navigate the storm that was about to hit. The twist had been revealed, but would David be able to rise above it, or would he be consumed by it? David told, "How do I even begin to fix this?" The storm had arrived, and there was no turning back. David's phone was blowing up with messages and notifications, some angry, some supportive, but all demanding a response. What had started as a personal conflict between him and one woman had snowballed into a national controversy, with his restaurant at the center of it all. The question that lingered in his mind, though, wasn't what he had done wrong. It was how to move forward. Sarah told David, "You okay?" David told, "I think it's time to take control of this." David had spent hours weighing his options, his mind torn between fighting for the truth and protecting his business. But one thing was clear. He couldn't keep hiding behind his policies or hope that it would all just blow over. He had to stand up, not just for his restaurant, but for the values he believed in. David told, "I want to start by saying that I take full responsibility for what happened here last night. My decision to ask someone to leave was a difficult one, and I never wanted to cause division or hurt anyone. But I've come to realize that this isn't just about a single incident. It's about the values that we, as a community, share. We believe in respect, inclusion, and empathy for all people, regardless of their backgrounds or beliefs. However, I also understand that this situation has exposed deeper divisions, and for that, I'm sorry. I've learned that it's not enough to simply stand by a policy. I need to engage in dialogue, to listen to people and to understand where they're coming from. I don't have all the answers, but I'm committed to learning, to growing, and to making this restaurant a place where everyone feels welcome." David had made his statement. It wasn't about winning over every critic or silencing every voice that had risen against him. It was about owning his mistakes and showing the world that he was willing to grow from them. The resolution wasn't about perfection. It was about taking the first step toward a more inclusive, thoughtful future. Sarah told, "That was good, David, really good." David told, "I don't know if it'll fix everything, but it's a start." The road ahead would not be easy. The wounds of the past week would take time to heal, and the challenges of running a business in such a polarized world were far from over. But David had learned something important in the last few days, that sometimes the path to resolution begins not with a grand gesture or a perfect answer, but with the simple act of listening, of owning up to one's mistakes, and of striving to be better tomorrow than you were today. In the end, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about choosing to be a better person, both for himself and for the community he had worked so hard to build. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about David's decision? Was he right to make a public statement, or should he have handled things differently? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more stories like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more updates. And, as always, feel free to share this video with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going.